Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome into episode 69 of Kayfabe
Nice.
Council, the show where we review and critique news topics and segments in the world of professional wrestling. My name is Pretty Tony, and alongside me, as always, is the good brother, TF Joker. Joker, what's crack, man? What's going on?
I promise we're not childish at all, but sometimes needs must, and you always have to go nice. As Childish Gambino once said, 69 is the only dinner for two. So we just have to always appreciate the number.
It's quite a unique number, shall we say, sometimes referred
Yeah.
to as a nice number, but yeah, we're 69 episodes in. Nice. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's we didn't think all these months and over a full year that we'd make it this far. So it's a very nice kind of semi milestone, if you will, to make it up to this number. So appreciate everybody coming along with us. Joker, you ever think we'd get this far?
No. Thought we'd be done after five because we get bored of it. Or just, it wouldn't be tenable. But, we're here 69 episodes in. We're very close to 100 at that point. So there you go. So it's definitely a milestone to hit.
We are closer to 100 than we are 0. So hey, it is what it is. Appreciate everybody listening and joining in. Let us know your favorite. Hit us up with your favorite nice comment there. But yeah, this week was certainly quite interesting for sure. Today, in this week's episode, excuse me, we're going to be doing a little bit of an older school Kayfabe Council episode, a little bit of a week in review. So we're covering just a couple of topics, just going over some of the highlights, touching on a bunch of things. And yeah, so just kind of getting the vibe, getting the groove. Hopefully, you are enjoying your Monday afternoon or evening whenever you're listening and watching of that, actually, want to appreciate and send a huge thanks out to everybody. We surpassed 1,000 plays slash downloads on the audio portion of the podcast here. Of course, available on Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the deals, wherever you get your podcast from. So thank you so much for giving us a listen on the audio side. Appreciate everybody.
100%.
All right. So, with that, we're going to kick into the episode proper. Let's get into it now. As a reminder, you can find us in video form at youtube.com/kayfabe council and in audio form wherever you get your podcast from. On this week's episode, we look at Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, top team in WWE. WWE going all in for NXT. AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday recap, as well as a Smackdown Summation. I tried to go with some alliterations there. Some worked, some didn't. But yeah, we're just going to go, like we mentioned, a little bit of the bigger topics over the course of the week, give our thoughts and impressions, see what you also think as well. But coming up first, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, top team in the WWE. Hot dang, Joker, my man. What a week for the American Nightmare, Mr. Cody Rhodes, as well as the main eventist of main event, Jey Uso. Started off with winning the titles at Fastlane. Of course, the eponymous viral press conference appearance on the post-show press conference there. A win over Sami and KO on Raw, as well as a win against Austin Theory and Grayson Waller on SmackDown. It's fair to say that they are getting their money's worth out of this makeshift team.
Yeah. I think one of the funniest things that I seen this week was a sign on SmackDown, I believe it was, that creased Cody Rhodes on his way to the ring where it said, "Do you feel him, sir?" So I was just like, that creased me as well. I was like, oh, that's really, really good. This I talked about this team last week. This is two single stars parading around with the undisputed tag team titles, which Jey Uso held for the longest period of time with his brother. Um, I don't personally see the point in this other than to give to long-standing individuals who carried the Bloodline segment for a super long period of time, and one who carried himself just back into the company off his own hard work and his successes outside of WWE, and a little bit of a redemption story for Cody Rhodes. But these aren't singles titles. Like, they should be rewarded with singles titles, not the the titles that remain in limbo, really. Again, match against Sami and KO, the former undisputed tag team title holders, who lost to Judgment Day. So, I mean, who beat Jay and Jimmy, to get those titles, and then winning against Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, another double single star tag team. So that's there's Sami and KO, two single stars, Grayson and Austin, two single stars, and it just seems to me that WWE are too focused on tag teams when this is like the very first time they even had that focus for a long period of time.
It's one of those oddball things. You just mentioned it, calling back to last week's previous episode of putting two single stars together who basically ended up, you could argue, dominated Judgment Day in their win at Fastlane in a lot of parts there. A more so cohesive tag team in a Damian Priest as well as a Finn Balor who had been together and had some cohesion, had some tag team matches before, but these two guys thrown together because they are over like Rover and single stars. They all powers combined, much like a Captain Planet, can overcome all obstacles and all evils and win the tag team championships. It's a weird thing. It's one of those I've noticed, and especially when they were introduced on Raw and SmackDown, that they once again are the undisputed tag team champions. They are not both the Raw and the SmackDown tag team championship holders. It's the final holdover from the previous era now that the titles have been renamed in a sort, and I'm talking about the SmackDown and Raw Women's Championship as well. But yeah, it's one of those weird things. I mean, I'm digging the vibes. You can definitely tell they have some chemistry, and I think they're fun to watch. They're fun to watch, Michael. Um, but it's a play on still what are we trying to do? What we're figuring out what we want to do, sort of in a holding pattern with the tag team division and tag team titles. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah. I'd more so kind of pivot that to being we're in a holding pattern for Cody and Jay more so than anything. We're giving them these titles so that they are relevant. Sorry, they remain relevant while they do get some fewer reps on TV. I guess is what we could say, because we are putting a bigger point on the Intercontinental title at this point in time on Raw, and we're also talking more about Bobby Lashley's and his sort of group with the LWO. Like, there's a couple of feuds that are sort of begging for TV time that we should be putting our time and energy to on Raw, and then with the Bloodline stuff and even the increasing heat of my boy LA Knight. Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta have those boys, have take their time. We saw a really, really good segment with Roman Reigns this week. And most of us because just LA Knight was there. So I feel like this is sort of holding pattern for Jay and Cody, and it's mainly to sort of give them relevancy without having them out in the public eye so much.
Quite interesting notion. Let me pivot here slightly. I know that you are a self-admitted large, huge Cody Rhodes fan, and you and
Yes.
I definitely dig us some Jey Uso. He's definitely just his character
Yes.
worked it off the charts. In terms
Mm.
of the team itself, and I mentioned to it just briefly earlier, they definitely have some sort of chemistry and kind of vibage together. Are you liking this tag team in isolation?
Like, I don't know. If I had to think about it in isolation, I don't know if I can like it, because my whole point to what I previously said there was This is keeping them relevant while not giving them much TV time. I'm not going to be getting too much out of my two favorite baby faces right now. Well, two of my three favorite baby faces. I really do like Jay. I think Jay is so meme worthy. I think he's a fantastic wrestler, and his charisma is off the charts. He's great. Cody is just over so hard. He has people singing his entire theme, even whenever he's not actually, coming to the ring to, to deal with anything. So it's one of those things that I like the two individuals that make up this team in isolation, but I don't know if I can marry that in my head to appreciate them as a tag team whenever I have my own sort of belief as to why they're even a championship worthy tag team. If we start to see these two uh, push over actual tag teams, then that's when I'll start to be like, boys, we need to abandon ship. We need to get rid of this, because there no good can come of turning single stars into a tag team and leaving it like that, especially when you have these two single stars.
I think I'm understanding your point in regard to them as a tag team. I think it's quite interesting. If I think I enjoy them as a pair, maybe a little bit more so than a tag team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And I talked about, just even that press conference appearance, them just playing off of one another. You can tell that they are friends and they're friendly with one another, and they, even though they might come from two different backgrounds or something, they both come from wrestling families, so they kind of get it and they definitely vibe with each other. So as a pair, I dig it, and maybe, yeah, to your point, the tag team thing is a little bit interesting, but in agreement, it's give them something now because we're trying to figure out sort of that and everything else as well. So
I mean, yeah, I would go so far as to agree there. It's probably also a sort of tie-in to the upcoming War Games that we're hopefully going to get for Survivor Series at the end of November. To have Jay being on the side of Cody and the possibility of this Judgment Day merger with the Bloodline, um, and with that whole prospective feud, who could be the fifth man for the baby faces side? Well, it might be LA Blooming Night. Of course it is. Um, but it's definitely one of those that it's probably going to be more of a talking point. Like, oh, look, Jay is a tag team champion again without you, Jimmy. Blah 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 blah. So I don't know. It's means to be seen. I'm glad they're having championship wins, I suppose. But yeah, this one isn't for me, unfortunately. That stings because my boy Cody is going to be the next world heavyweight champion soon.
let me pose this to you. You mentioned Survivor Series at the end of November. We got one more pay per view from the WWE before that, Crown Jewel. Uh, who maybe do you see challenging the combination of Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso at that one-off show, and perhaps how long do you see them holding these titles?
Interesting. I'd probably say if we're going to have a match we'll talk about later, if we're going to have that match, then I reckon we'll have Solo and Jimmy, and we'll do a bit of a lead into Survivor Series at Crown Jewel. As we talked about before, they are slowly becoming slightly more canon, what with actual good matches and nobody asking for Yokozuna anymore. So if we can have that sort of thing, then fair enough. If we're going completely off canon, I don't know, maybe the LWO.
Okay, fair play. Do you see them holding on to these titles long term, if at all, maybe like months perhaps?
I don't see the merit in having them lose these titles before Royal Rumble. If we've given the titles to them, they have to at least hold them until the Rumble, so that we can do individual setups for Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania.
Fair play. Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah, so we can sow some seeds perhaps, or there could be some things possibly after a War Games Survivor Series, maybe into the Royal Rumble, perhaps. Yeah. To counter your response, if we're going canon crown jewel, I can see your point of a Solo and a Jimmy tag team defense. If we're going non-canon Saudi Arabia show, just popped in my mind. Let's do a little DIY versus Cody and Jey Uso. If it's just one off, doesn't mean anything. So fair enough.
Yeah, that would be good. Considering DIY are back together, even though we thought we'd never see DIY back together ever again.
We got it, certainly. And one last note here, that combo move, I guess I'm calling the one Cody, is just a cool combo, but Cody, for the love of Jesus, please be careful. That landing on Raw and SmackDown is looking quite concerning, shall we say. So let's maybe clean it up
Yeah,
a
the
little bit if we
Rhodes ring.
can. We want to see you stay in ring.
Definitely. For your own flipping safety, mate. Just kindly tone it down a little bit.
A little bit. Maybe Jay brings the person closer to Cody, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see.
Possibly.
Be that as it may, Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso are quite the hot team this week. Lots of appearances, lots of over crowd reaction. They're loving them. We'll see kind of how it goes. Let us know down in the comment section below on YouTube or hit us up on Twitter, Instagram. Let us know what you are thinking and your impressions of Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso as seemingly the top tag team in WWE. Next on the docket, WWE going all in for NXT. So, quite interesting this past week on NXT. We were loading up for bear. I ended up watching the episode itself. Was not a special episode. It wasn't like a Halloween Havoc. It wasn't like a Great American Bat. It wasn't like a No Mercy. That was a pay-per-view I think the NXT had like 2 weeks ago. This was just your run-of-the-mill, seemingly random episode of NXT. Some of the highlights here, and they were loading up with people. Cody Rhodes making an appearance. Apparently, he was the guest GM. We also had an appearance from Dominic and Rhea of Judgment Day. John Cena coming in, a couple of appearances in the segments. He was seconding or managing, shall we say, for the main event of Carmelo Hayes. Asuka made an appearance, taking on Roxanne Perez. Paul Heyman was also there. He seconded Braun Breaker. Jade Cargill made a little appearance, and as well the Undertaker. We went literally all in on that, if I can use some nomenclature. Joker, because they half advertised some people, they tried to leave a surprise or two. Was this something that, with all these guests, interest you at all to even entertain the notion of you checking out this seemingly random episode of NXT?
No, not at all. Because I didn't care. Because I knew it was just a parade of big names just to pop a rating. This was a stupid grab at ratings that as soon as I watched the AEW press conference and heard that we're having this title Tuesday because of TK's birthday, I knew that we're going to pop a rating, brother. So it's definitely to combat the move for that week's Dynamite. That's what it was for. That's why it happened. Both companies did really well in the ratings, as far as I am led to believe. Personally, I I mean, the Undertaker is just some guy that does his, one dead man show now. I don't care about the Undertaker. I don't think
Is he doing a one-man comedy show? What's going on with this? I've heard of this. I don't know anything about
he
it.
he tells stories of his times on the road. So
Okay. Okay.
I honestly thought it was him doing stand up, and that is what I would pay to watch. But it's
100%.
not. It's just him doing, like, telling stories about his time on the road, which is fair enough. The man has loads of stories. I'm sure he's been in the business for a long, 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 long time. But I didn't care that he was in this match, or on this seemingly random show, and sort of gave a blessing to Carmelo Hayes. Like, I'm sure he loved it. Like getting to meet the Undertaker as a wrestler would be blooming amazing. Don't get me wrong. I saw pictures with a whole bunch of people, wanting to talk to the Undertaker, um, and talking to Paul Heyman and whatnot. Like that is amazing, but it didn't try and tempt me in to watching the show because there were better storylines which I want to pay attention to on the main shows. I feel like it would be disingenuous for me personally to go in and watch a random episode of NXT and be like, "Well, that was terrible." Like, what was the point in that? And put it down and further cement my idea of it not being good. I'm just not a fan of this version of NXT, PT. I like the black and gold. I faded out with 2.0. I've stopped watching since the 2.0 sort of Adam Cole feud with Karrion Cross at that time. Like that's when I started to fade out. So no, I didn't care that they wanted to march some of these boys back in. Didn't pop me for a rating, but if it popped people, then did its job.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Myself, likewise, when it was the black and gold style, yeah, I used to it be in my watching rotation for sure. I think I just whatever was the sort of the stories, but it was the characters. Your Finn Balor's, your Shinsuke's, your KO's, and then onto the sort of next half generation with the Johnny Garganos and Tommaso Ciampa's
Shayna
and Aleister
Baszler.
Black, yep, Shayna Baszler, like all these kind of guys, and then yeah, when it sort of Undisputed Era, just those guys were
Mm.
just giving out the gaff. When it transitioned to a 2.0 is when I kind of just shortly before that, I think I ended up just sort of not having it in my rotation anymore. So, but yeah, it was one of those where I think I was curious, so I kind of checked it out for the purposes of this show, and it was one of those where, much like sort of we talked about non-canon, sort of the Saudi Arabia crown jewel, this was sort of just a sort kind of one-off. Like we
Mm.
tried to put a story or two in there, but this was just kind of putting our stories on soft hold for just 1 week, and then I'm presumably we'll get back to it. So, be that as it may, you mentioned the ratings and people interest. The show itself actually did pretty decent. I made note here NXT had a total audience of 921,000 and a score of a .30 rating in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic, the one that usually looks at. Juxtaposed with AEW had a total audience of 609,000 and a score of .26 rating in the same 18 to 49-year-old demographic. Shoutouts to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics for those numbers. So at the end of the day, we had, a combined, 1.5 million people. Either they're flipping back and forth or people checking it out. To be fair, you didn't count as a viewer. I, per se, didn't count as a viewer because I don't know about other folks. I just can't seem to watch live because of so many commercial breaks. I think it breaks up the rhythm for me. I've tried to watch it. They like a example of Raw was they'd start the show, maybe 10-15 minute segment, boom, go to commercial, come back, we do an entrance. We get 4.5 minutes of the show, go break to another commercial for another 2.5 minutes, come back. We'd maybe get 4 minutes of wrestling, go to another commercial. It kills my vibe and the thing. I don't know about
I
you.
completely agree, dude. I actually have grown to really dislike picture in picture advertising. So much so that I now skip the picture in picture advertising, even though there's a match. Because I can't concentrate on it. Yeah, sure, it's probably like something wrong with me there, but I just can't concentrate on it. I want to hear the commentary, so most of the time there is the ability to watch it without watching the picture in picture advertising, and I prefer that. But yeah, I can't nor could I ever watch live. I know I've tried before when I had real trouble sleeping, and it'd be easy for me to watch at like 1 a.m. But then, like you said, 10 minutes in, and we're starting our first ad break. And then 5 minutes after that, we're starting another one while we get ready for the actual match. Heaven forbid we have more than one match because that would just interrupt the half hour of ad rolls there, too. Yeah, but getting back to the actual point, um, the 609,000 for AEW, like that's amazing considering, and let's face it, they're not rolling out big names from their past just to pop a rating. Yeah, sure, you can argue Edge is there, or sorry, Adam Copeland. Christian Cage is there. Sure, they've got former WWE stars there, but they're not marching them out intentionally and having them rub elbows with their newest stars. They're having matches with their newest stars, which is, really, really good. Whereas Undertaker's just out there to throw a choke slam or two, probably. Um, John Cena was out there to clearly do two or three of his 5 or 6 moves of doom. And Paul Heyman was out there to be like, yes, yes, I am Paul Heyman. So it's just one of those things. I think that AEW did better out of this than WWE, because NXT wouldn't have hit that number if it wasn't for the aforementioned stars.
We'll get to the AEW portion in the next segment in just a few minutes. But yeah, I think it's one of those where, I mean, a lot of folks checked out wrestling on a Tuesday, which doesn't always happen. We had two different philosophies go with the two companies. So, for folks to check it out and, whatever this thing with rating. Let me pose this question to you here. So ratings are a bit of a weird thing. I think the weird nature of sort of wrestling social media and wrestling Twitter, I guess for lack of a term, has this sort of infatuation. It's probably stemmed from the dirt sheets about ratings, like, oh, they did this number and these thresholds and these milestones, and for example, and I mean, I don't know about you, but like I don't know if I sort of subscribe to that notion, the sort of hyper competitive type of thing that a certain section of wrestling fans and wrestling social media kind of does. I mean, I'm not concerned with it. Doesn't I don't kind of care for it. I don't sort of quote unquote report or journalize on it to an extent. I don't know if it's because I don't follow certain people or I'm not invested in maybe certain circles, but I is it we enjoy some of the similar things, but we enjoy different things as well. Is this something that you've noticed or observed in other types of media? Maybe like television shows, maybe going on the same night on different channels or different nights, maybe sports games or one over the other, or like a movie box office number or like a video game unit sold thing. Is this something that you've seen or heard? Or I mean, I don't know. Help me out here.
It's not something that I personally would see too often, because I don't really watch TV. I do go on the internet and watch things on YouTube, on Twitch, on other streaming platforms. For entertainment, I listen to music and watch movies and stuff like that there, but all on the internet. Like I don't really care too much about watching it because, again, ad breaks. I'm not a big fan of ad breaks. I don't want to watch live TV when they've got advertisements and I can just watch the streamed version on Disney Plus or something. Hashtag not sponsored. So I mean, we're talking about something that could benefit the other, that's going on at the same time. And my biggest sort of uh reference to that would be the Barbie and Oppenheimer movies recently that both came out on the same day, and
Right.
it was called Barbenheimer because that whole day was like, go and see Barbie, then go see Oppenheimer. No, Oppenheimer, then and they buoyed each other. There was a lot of free advertising done for each of those movies because of the other movie, like because they were so juxtaposed in their modus operandi as to what they wanted to get done with their movies. So that's about the closest thing to this AEW WWE sort of. They helped each other. Like WWE are clearly doing something. Well, I know that AEW is currently on, so I'm going to have that on as well, or instead of, because I don't care about that, or I don't care about this. Oh wait, hang on, John Cena's back on. and we've just heard that John Cena will get called back to Hollywood once the writer's strike is over. And that's a done thing. Like, they can just bring him back because he has to go back to work. So I want to see the last thing that John Cena does. Oh, I haven't seen Undertaker in a while. These sorts of things. So that's the closest thing that I can make to a sort of guess as to what these things sort of do. But I don't see why people hate on it. And a lot of people hate on it. And internet wrestling community is a toxic cesspool of hatred and you know I don't know why you hate wrestling whenever you're part of the wrestling community on the internet, but you all hate wrestling. So maybe find another hobby. But yeah, they are so savage with just tearing AEW down. It's like, wow, you couldn't even, pop this rating on Tuesday. La 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 la. It's like, yeah, but you had to bring out some retired superstars and some guys who haven't wrestled here and all this here just so you could pop that rating. So yeah, it's just a cesspool of infighting and hatred for wrestling. And I feel like getting lost in the numbers for ratings um just sort of annoys me.
Maybe it's to the section of fans or the people that enjoy one thing over the other to point to this thing that I like did more or did better at this moment in time than the thing that maybe I don't like as much or something. So at the end of the day, alternatives are good, competition is good. If we had just one flavor, then everybody would get sick of it. So I mean, it's cool like that. I mean, folks are checking out wrestling. It is what it is. So that's a fair point in terms of the a Suto comparison with two films. Okay, that sort of reminded me, but yeah, I just it's maybe not for me. I don't understand it. I'm and here come the torches and pitchforks. You can like something without being negative or crapping on something else that's also in the same sphere or in another sphere. So I mean, I don't understand that behavior. It is what it is. Some people are all for it, but it's maybe not for me. But yeah, but be that as it may, we're also getting another head-to-head upcoming. Pulled some information here. The next head-to-head between a WWE and an AEW program will happen November 17. Collision is moved to Friday at 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, meaning there will be a live 3-hour block from the Forum in Los Angeles with Rampage at 10 to 11 p.m. Eastern. So the first 2 hours will go against SmackDown on Fox. Also of note here, AEW can't air its program in its normal time slot because the Full Gear pay-per-view event will be taking place the next day on November 18th. So we're getting a Civil Saturday pay-per-view.
And we talked about that last week, like what they would do with the Saturday pay-per-view, and looks like that's their answer. We're moving it to Friday, which fair enough. Like, that is kind of what we thought they might do. But you did say that last week, I believe. So yeah, I mean, that's something that they have to be prepared for. I think that the Forum in LA is actually one of the better venues for an AEW crowd. If this was to happen in I don't know, in Chicago, it might not go down as well. If it was to happen in New York, probably wouldn't. If it was to happen, if it was to happen anywhere, I think other than LA Forum, then I think this probably wouldn't do so well. It's gonna pull a bigger rating, I think, on the Friday. Personally, uh, if we're doing the go home show the day before their pay per view.
Yeah, sometimes, and I found out traditionally Fridays, just television wise, aren't the greatest in terms of ratings because folks sometimes have a propensity to go out, and this is of course pre and post pandemic eras, to go out with some friends on a Friday night or something of that nature. This is why I also like Saturday sometimes. You put a show in a Friday night at 8 o'clock, you're like, oh, you're not setting it up for success traditionally. So will
Yeah.
beg to be seen. And then also note here, there will also be another head-to-head, looks like the next week on November 25, with Collision going against Survivor Series, and on December 9, with Collision going against NXT Deadline from Bridgeport, Connecticut. So quite interesting there.
Collision going against Survivor Series is not going to do well. That's going to be bad. But the NXT one, it might be okay.
Yeah, maybe. We'll wind down the segment here. What are your thoughts on overlapping shows? If you know that maybe two programs are going to be on either on the same time or relatively close, maybe have some overlapping thing. Do you sometimes choose one or the other? Do you end up watching both? What's maybe your flavor?
I choose one over the other. I choose the one that I'm more invested in at that period of time, and then I watch the other one straight after. Because I have that luxury with wrestling, I tend to start with the show that currently has the hot hand. So it's basically the last few weeks has been SmackDown before Collision or Rampage or anything like that. There, clearly before Collision because Collision's on a Saturday night. Um, duh. But it's typically SmackDown before Rampage, and it's typically if I don't get to watch on a Tuesday, I would end up being busy. It's sort of Dynamite before Raw on a Thursday. Sometimes I might not have the time on a Wednesday to watch it, but yeah, it really does depend on who is the more interesting product at that point in time. The last few weeks, it has actually been WWE before AEW, but there was a period of time there leading up to All In where it was definitely AEW before WWE because it just wasn't anything that I really cared about. And especially whenever the Bloodline stuff just really didn't want to die, it was AEW before WWE because I knew I had to go in and watch 2 hours of Roman Reigns going, acknowledge me, acknowledge me, acknowledge me. I am tribal Roman chief.
So quite interesting. I like your answer. Maybe it's a little bit more dynamic of what's maybe the hot hand is the sort of priority, and then but you check out both anyway. So okay, fair play. All right, yeah, and I mean for argumentative purposes, I end up watching all the products as much as I can for, of course, for the show as well. So to be informed. So okay, well, it's quite interesting. Definitely different philosophies when it comes to a sort of rivalry of sorts. We haven't had something like this for quite some time. But be that as it may, WWE just go in for broke, apparently and seemingly, on a random episode of NXT on a Tuesday. Was that a response to another show that we'll talk about in a moment? Maybe. Seems like it was. But be that as it may, let us know down in the comment section below on YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram. Let us know if you checked out or you wanted to see this episode of NXT, if it helped at all, if you end up watching live, and perhaps is ratings something you even think about or care about? Let us know down in the comments below. All right, switching gears here. Next on the docket, AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday recap. Tried to continue the alliteration, couldn't find a T word, so I went with recap. But yes, this was on a Tuesday, a little bit different. This was preemptive because of the Major League Baseball playoffs happening on Wednesday, so they shifted to Tuesday. But this was also Tony Khan's birthday extravaganza. So we ended up getting a loaded card here. Just go through it very, very briefly. Eddie Kingston retains over Minoru Suzuki in a Dynamite buy-in pre-show for a episode of Dynamite. Quite interesting, a half hour before the show started. We also got a 10-minute overrun. Scratch his chin. But onto the show proper, Bryan Danielson became the #1 contender for Christian's TNT title over Swerve Strickland. Subsequently, Christian Cage retains with an assist from Ricky Starks on Collision. Orange Cassidy becomes the new and two-time international champion with a win over Rey Fenix. Hikaru Shida becomes the new AEW Women's Champion over Saraya. We have Adam Copeland, the rated R superstar, in the main event, winning over Luchasaurus in his first AEW match. Quite an eventful Dynamite for sure. What were your impressions or thoughts just from that episode of Dynamite?
was fine. It was legitimately like that. I didn't see it as a mind blowing episode of Dynamite. I wasn't blown away by it, but equally I wasn't disappointed by it. I knew what I was getting going in with Edge Adam Copeland being in that main event. I gotta love that newcomer coming in and squashing the established star. You know,
Way to put the rookie over right there.
way to put that rookie over, Luchasaurus. Good job, buddy. Um, got a couple of different things that I was just like sort of surprised by. Hikaru Shida becoming the women's champion again. Nothing against Hikaru Shida, but this is her third time
She's a three-time
as the
champion.
champion. Why? What's the whole? What was the deal with Saraya? Like, why aren't we not?
Can I throw a conspiracy theory in here?
You go right ahead.
All in London, Karushida walked in as
Huh?
champion in a four-way. As a here's a conspiracy theory. It's based on nothing, by the way. Just a little PT thoughts,
You
real
blow our
quick.
minds, PT.
Hashtag PT thoughts. When maybe TK brought Saraya in, maybe it was something like that. I feel like a title run is in your future, and we didn't want to give it to you right away, of course, because that'd probably bring you a lot of heat ski. But maybe this was an apropos time in her home country at All In London to perhaps, as a make good, be like, you know what, maybe I said or I felt like I wanted to put the title on you, so here's a good ovation in front of your hometown crowd. But then, okay, so to be fair, I did honor the request, and I did the promise there. Again, this is all speculative, and this is hashtag PT thoughts. We're gonna, we'll put the belt back on Hikaru Shida.
It's a 2 month reign. I don't like it. It's stupid and it reeks. I'm not saying your conspiracy theory is stupid. I'm just saying that the decision, regardless, to give her a 2.5-ish month reign was narrow minded, short sighted, and reeks more of TK's inability to book long term the women's division in terms of storyline. I think that Hikaru Shida is a wonderful champion. She is fantastic in the ring. Um, but I probably would have given Saraya a little bit more time to deal with the Tony Storm psychosis storyline. Like they just kind of went, okay, love, you go and do whatever you want. But it would have been great to see Tony Storm come back around and beat the ever loving tar out of Saraya, and for to have a feud, and then for maybe Saraya to, beat her back to her senses, kind of thing. Something like this. You know, building a story and reason for being makes more sense than, oh well, I said I would give you a championship, but 2 months is up, so now it's time to hop a to that thing. This isn't the TNT title, TK. Stop it, buddy. You're trying to fix that title, but guess what? You can do more than one thing at a time. I do it all the time. It's called multitasking. I'm not very good at it, but I still attempt to do it. Um, yeah. So that's my main gripe with this thing. Um, and the other thing that I was not so much griped about, but intrigued was Orange Cassidy winning over Ray Fenix. Now, you've been paying attention to Orange Cassidy, he has been lamenting the fact that he does not have a title. He's also been a little bit annoyed that people are, talking about titles and, declaring number one contendership for titles. And he never really got his rematch. So this is the rematch. And then he won. And then he became sort of obsessed, which I liked because it reminded me of Tommaso Ciampa with Goldie back in today of the black and gold, and he just kind of took the belt and sort of walked off with it. And the fanfare, I think somebody pointed it out on Twitter, forget who it was, that in his original international, intercontinental, intersea championship because he won it before it was
All
the
Atlantic.
international. That's the one. He celebrated with orange like paper
Confetti.
kind of going. Yeah, that's the word. I don't know. Brain's slowly shutting down today, PT. And big hug in the middle of the ring with the best friends. And here he's just like gold confetti, and he walks off by himself. And like, ooh. So we're getting some sort of cool pseudo heel ish obsessive angle with Orange, and I'm kind of here for it. So that sort of tipped the scales either way for me on this, which led it to a bit of neutrality.
I'll capitalize on the last point you made there in terms of Orange Cassidy winning and becoming a two-time international champion. Here, I have a little backstage note. According to Fightful Select, Tony Khan originally had plans to put the title back on Moxley on this week's episode of Dynamite. The reason for this is because Fenix is dealing with visa issues that will keep him off of TV for the foreseeable future. When AEW officials learned early Tuesday afternoon that Moxley was not going to be cleared to compete, the decision was made to put the title on Cassidy. So, a little bit of a piece there. But I think that was a fair observation for sure. Definitely the substantial run that Orange Cassidy had with the international title. You and I both commented on that it leapfrogged significantly the TNT title as the number 2 behind the world title. And honestly, some folks were possibly thinking if we were having a little bit more of a brand split with Dynamite and Collision, that we'd have the AEW World Championship on Dynamite and potentially elevating the international to be a significantly, maybe the number 1 belt on the Collision. So, I mean, we were working towards, we were putting in work. It was certainly more defenses than the world title. That's a booking decision. We were having phenomenal matches as well with Orange Cassidy and a lot of folks. I mean, we were getting tons of defenses. So, absolutely, TK holds Orange Cassidy in high regard. I recall even him putting him over in a press conference, him being one of the most dependable hands and just one of the huge assets that AEW has. So, for sure, I mean, it's a tough accident, tough hand for Mox. You know, you can never plan or hope for accidents or injuries for sure. Send him all the best regards to John Moxley. It was great to see him at Wrestle Dream, being able to be on commentary and seemingly in good spirits. But we had to pivot back to Cassidy. So that, not to say that that's a make good, maybe like my conspiracy theory with Saraya, but it definitely shows he has the confidence, Tony Khan, that in the booking as well as a person to help carry the company in an Orange Cassidy. You say that's a fair point?
I would say that's very fair, yeah. We've talked about Orange Cassidy's reign, like you mentioned there, with nothing but glowing responses for it. I'd be, I'm the same. I lament the fact that we didn't get to see too much of John Moxley, put on the shelf, relative, first match out, and then 2-3 matches down the line, the guy who beat him is now got visa issues. So it really seems like there's a lot sort of trying to derail this. It is a real mixed bag for AEW because they have all of these different people from different parts of the world. People fly from Japan, people fly from the UK, people fly from Mexico, etc. Other countries are also included in that clearly, but these are the ones where the stars have the most issue getting back into the country or working in that country. See Pac, who
I
wasn't
was
really able to be part of it.
I was literally about to say, like, I can't even remember the last time we had or seen a
Yeah.
match from Pac. Yeah.
It's literally him and just traveling and things like that. There, it's insane. It's one of those things that you hate to see. He clearly has something completely different. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say that. Yeah, it's 100% visa for him as well. But his is just he wants to maintain his home in the UK. Like that's his prerogative. Um, so yeah, these visa issues anyway. Like come at a really really sucky time for Fenix. But you'd nearly think that this is something that AEW should put a lot more focus on whenever you're dealing with these international wrestlers. So yeah, I'm a wee bit more annoyed that this has happened than surprised. Um, it's definitely something that maybe they should get a better handle on.
Mind the accident that happened to John, where he got injured accidentally in the match with Phoenix. Do you say maybe putting the title back on Orange Cassidy is a pseudo way to right the ship in a very interim sense for the international title?
There's no so TK doesn't do well in a crisis when something is changed drastically and he can't correct it immediately. So clearly, this is a decision born of the unfortunate situation that we're going in, and it has jumped hands to two different people, which is how you can tell that TK didn't, even think the plan of this. So no, I think this is born out of a sort of opportunity. The character work of Orange Cassidy was really really good. I don't have time to think of who to fix this title to, so let's just give it back to him while we sort these two things out. These are going to take my entire focus for this little period of time. Like, I think that's what it more is. Um, I think that once Moxley does get cleared and comes back, we will see a return of this match. Maybe in a few months, we'll let Orange Cassidy sort of rebuild this title back, sort of build his character around it, and have a bit of fun with it. I think that would be really, really good for him, really good for AEW. And then once Fenix comes back in however long it's going to take him to get back, we'll maybe have another match between him and Moxley for the title.
That's sort of what I was leaning towards as a just he Orange is a we had a bit of an accident, a kerfuffle. Put it on a dependable hand in Orange Cassidy right now until we can sort things out. That's what I was leaning towards. So yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like he fell into that as opposed to he immediately thought of that. Normally, whenever you're wanting to put it onto a solid hand, like he did in the first place, he worked towards that. Like there was the Pac stuff, and it moved swiftly on to Orange Cassidy, who maintained a high level of competition. I think he more so fell into that sort of situation rather than, oh yes, I have a brilliant idea. Because to me, honestly, that's the way it looks. Given his treatment of other mid card, quote unquote, titles that he has, and his treatment of the women's division, I don't personally see this as something that TK really tried hard to fix.
Fair play. We'll wind down the segment with the titles now back on Orange Cassidy. Are you okay with that? Do you maybe feel
Yeah,
like somebody else in the
I am.
moment, or
No, I am perfectly fine with that. Literally because of the character work that Cassidy's been doing this last couple of weeks. If it was just given back to him and none of that had been set up prior to this match, then it would be sucky, and I wouldn't really have cared too much about it. And I've been questioning why are we doing this, and the lamenting the luck. So no, I'm okay with this mainly because Orange Cassidy.
yeah, I think the first run was an indication of you can have some character work, you can have some good matches. Bendable Hand, they want to change up the character slightly and pivot a little bit and give us a little bit different flavor of orange, maybe some tang, maybe some orange apple, maybe some orange banana. Who knows? I don't know. Just going on the
Some
fly.
vodka
Either way,
orange.
there we go, little screwdriver. But that's I think it's good till we can sort things out. So yeah, stacked dynamite, quite interesting. So with that, let us know down in the comment section below on YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram. Let us know what your thoughts were on AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday. What your maybe favorite match on that was. What were your thoughts on the new champions? You think Orange Cassidy will have a strong second run? Let us know down in the comments below. All right, final topic we're going to cover here. Smackdown Summation. We had a couple of sort of pivotal points, interesting notes happened on WWE SmackDown this past Friday, the first of which Roman Reigns miraculously returned to the show, of course, interrupting John Cena, who opened the show itself. We had Roman jaw with Cena before switching gears to the legend himself, Mr. Los Angeles Knight, coming down, seemingly standing tall, showing no fear in front of the tribal chief. Quite the interesting there. We had Jimmy try to come in with a bit of an attack on you there, but he ended up standing tall. So LA Knight looking strong in the same ring in front of the champion. Joker, what were your impressions when we had that LA Knight Roman Reigns face to face?
There's a couple of pictures out there of the camera work that happened where you can see the reflection of Roman Reigns in LA Knight's glasses. That to me was great. That one picture was fantastic. That was chef's kiss, 100%. Um, the way John Cena sort of laid it up, he was about as subtle as a brick to the face. As I am one to sort of, you know, compare myself to. I don't beat about the bush. I just sort of go right in like a right hook. So it's one of those things that I really enjoyed his setup to bringing out LA Knight.
Given the shine to his tag team partner.
Yeah, yeah. He definitely did. He's one step away of just kind of ramming the microphone down Roman Reigns. So it's like, here's your replacement, and just I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was cool to see. I mean, LA Knight's no rookie here. Okay, he's been around the block. He's been on this whirlwind of an upward trajectory because of his own charisma. So it's one of those that you look at and you go, is this really him getting the rub off Roman and Cena, or is this just LA Knight just getting what he deserves? Um, it is going to be an inevitable. It is going to be an inevitable loss for LA Knight. Like, unfortunately, we do have Roman Reigns holding that title. I don't see LA Knight beating Roman Reigns anytime soon. I just don't know what way to think of it. So it was tarnished with that, I think. I was like, oh no, we're not doing this. Oh wait, I like this. Oh no, we're not doing this. Oh wait, I like this. It's like,
A little torn, a little bittersweet, would you say?
yeah, definitely. Because even though, yeah, sure, everybody wants to see their favorites win all the time, uh for the sake of my own insider knowledge, as it were, my own ability to sort of see past the kayfabe and be like, oh well, we know that they're going to try and build up this Roman Reigns legacy even higher. So that means your favorites have to lose.
I thought in terms of the segment, I mean, boy, you talked about it before as well with LA Knight sort of natural progression of being a heel to a tweener to basically a babyface that gets crazy reactions. To be fair, you can't deny that the crowd is into it. When his music hits, it's GTA San Andreas starts and he comes out and it's LA Knight, and the crowd reactions. I mean, they're saying his name. Whose game is it? LA Knight. Yeah, the whole yeah thing. I think there was even one random spot. LA Knight was the guest referee in a match with Dominic on NXT, and then the
On
crowd was chanting,
NXT.
yeah, and he's just pointing at it, and he's like acknowledging it without trying to take too much of the shine away from the wrestlers itself. But again, sort of from undesirable to undeniable, as a Cody Rhodes might used to say. But I think in terms where I'm going with this is, man, way to set up and make a possible next or newer contender for a fresh matchup look strong in that moment with a John Cena, with a Roman in there. I thought it was really good to present him in that facet.
Definitely, and I feel like this is one of those contenders that we'll look at and be surprised the amount of offense we give LA Knight um in on Roman, and then have the last little bit of interference. I think there has to be an interference loss for LA Knight. And clearly, we know that it's going to be Jimmy because Jimmy's just that guy at the minute who wants to, be that second string quarterback. Um, so yeah, it's they're kind of making that a little bit obvious, and then we'll have the Solo versus Jimmy eventually, and the Jimmy reuniting with his brother, and and all that nonsense. So it's we can see where they're going. It's a nice trip to get there, especially whenever you're talking about getting a brand new superstar in Loquacious Aloysius Knight. So
All right, Mr. Joker. With the face to face in the early portion of SmackDown, Roman spearing LA Knight to finish off SmackDown. There was an interaction on a live event this past weekend with LA Knight hitting the BFT on Mr. Roman. Once again, I'm going to return to the topic, a little callback, if you will. Crown Jewel coming up in a couple weeks. Semi non canon / semi non canon / canon / sometimes yes, sometimes no, little Saudi Arabia deal. The Saudis like to have Mr. Roman Reigns on there. Is LA Knight potentially his opponent for that show?
there is the potential for him to be on that show. I think um, with his sort of placement right now, yes, he has a chance. But there's also somebody else who was traded to SmackDown who also could possibly be another victim because he already has like 4 losses to him. What's one more? And it would just be another one that you could then add on to Crown Jewel.
We'll get into that in a moment. So there is potential. Looks like we're setting that up for a possible showdown very soon. But as Joker alluded to in the second big piece that happened on SmackDown, Mr. Triple H, Papa H himself, made a special appearance announcement on Smackers. We had the return of general managers with Mr. Adam Pearce residing and being the GM of Monday Night Raw, and the introduction of a Mr. Nick Aldis as the SmackDown general manager. Nice little piece there in himself introducing himself to Mr. Dominic, who was in the ring, said he was a big fan. Hold for pause of your father. I randomly took my eyes to the crowd, and there was probably a young fan, a young lady that went, "Oh," kind of the diss piece. But quite the interesting notion, and I'll just get to it as well. And we had the second announcement as part of this, as the completion of the Jey Uso trade, big air quotes, I'll say, moving to Monday Night Raw, thanks to the unofficial Vice President of Talent Relations, Cody Rhodes, unofficial, not kayfabe. We had Kevin Owens come over to SmackDown. So real quick, before I get into that piece, first of all, your thoughts and impressions of bringing a Mr. Nick Aldis into the WWE.
Um, surprised at this. Former NWA heavyweight champion, former sparring partner of Master Cody Rhodes, has had a really good career, and the husband of one Mickey James. He's still in his prime.
He's a young
Like,
guy.
he is
He's a young guy.
36 years of age. Yeah.
Yeah.
So bringing him in, like, I'm okay with it. Cool. I thought he was gonna be. I heard the rumors that he was gonna be going to WWE. Um, and I thought, cool, we're gonna get another sort of indie big name, um, and have him, maybe work with LA Knight at some point, and and et cetera, et cetera. He comes in as a GM, and I'm like, and I said to you before we started recording, like, is this all a big lead up for the in ring return of Scrap Daddy Adam Pearce? And are we going to have the 1v1 for Raw versus SmackDown culminate in a match between Nick Aldis, husband to Mickey James, versus Scrap Daddy Adam Pearce? Like, is that going to happen? Do you think that could happen?
I wouldn't be mad. I like the character of Adam Pearce. To switch gears tiny bit, the notion of GMs. He's been sort of an unofficial. He's been a WWE official of sorts, a pseudo authority figure. He's been holding down this position, in backstage segments and sort of announcements in ring and sort of on stage for probably about a year, maybe a year and a half or something like that. And I feel like they're picking the spots. It's not overdone. Folks are just like, he's an official, so they're just like, hey, let me go talk to Adam Pearce. Let me go to the office.
Hmm.
He's not lording over. I think it's real subtle, and he's done a really good job. They picked their spots well.
He's been doing it for a longer time than that, because remember he had that period of time with Sonya Deville as well, where they were
Mm.
sharing the ownership of it as well, and he has kind of gotten his own catchphrase over of saying that's official, I'll make it official and all this here. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the character is fantastic. I always love seeing his interactions with Chelsea Green, because she is clearly, just killing it right now with her character work. Um, yeah, it's just one of those things that I welcome this return to GMs, much like I welcome the return of factions. But it just kind of caught me off guard that we were bringing in Nick Aldis, who honestly looked like he could have just, pancaked Dom there and then, and he looked really good in that ring.
Nick Aldis looking really sharp in that suit, looking real good,
Yeah,
looking real
that
jack,
suit
baby.
was, yeah, he was filling out that suit in all the right places, and you're just like, damn, bro, like, are you sure you shouldn't be, like, I don't know, running in the main event here?
I think the notion of GMs, obviously, it's a tried and tested true, the authority figure. I mean, at least we don't have a super heel as an authority figure. That's been run into the ground. That's
Oh yeah,
as stale as can be. But I think it's
Baron Corbin.
sort of you're right, though. I think it's quite the interesting notion of, I know that Raw and SmackDown are on two different networks and trying to be a brand split, but it's not really a brand split because we have people. I mean, we have Dominic and by proxy Rhea show up on Raw, NXT, and basically SmackDown, type of thing. So there's no, you know, thing like that. I think it's sort of a catch-all to make this pseudo rivalry between Raw and a SmackDown. It can be like things for the Royal Rumbles, for potential Survivor Series, things of that nature. A little bit of a pseudo rivalry, sort of a catch-all, if you will, and a
Mm.
potential falling piece, a little to blame, like, oh, it's the GM's fault or something like that. So I think it's maybe more so a story element per se than maybe like any sort of official designation, I think. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's cool. Like, it just kind of in my mind, it sort of started sparking things for, if we do have an in ring possibility for Aldis, then he could definitely work that angle really well. Like, he could start interfering, as the perception may hold to some people, and they could go after him. They could attack him only for him to defend himself. Make a match with him versus them, and blah blah blah. Which would have real good connotations for a sort of baby face like GM for once, who's willing to go to bat for themselves, who can just sort of go into the ring and take out any frustrations with their clientele. And I suppose you could just kind of juxtapose that with Scrap Daddy, who would would literally make things official and sort of have no animosity with other people. So I can see that sort of friction being built with Nick Aldis, and I think that might be the better route there, especially because you have got all of these egos in SmackDown. Like, I feel like the egos are higher and hotter on SmackDown than on Raw. Everybody else on Raw seems more approachable and easy to sort of understand what their character's meant to be doing. Whereas, you have people who, you got LA Knight, you got Roman Reigns, you got Jimmy Uso, things like that there. So he could butt heads with these people and he could take them down too.
quite the cavalcade of characters, as one might say. But to the one last notion, as we mentioned it, of course, Kevin Owens is the final portion of the announcement there. Traded to SmackDown to complete the Jey Uso trade. Quite interesting because Kevin and Sami had the match with Cody and Jey on Raw. And at the end, Cody and Jey won. We had the show of respect. We had that little bit of acknowledgement with KO and Jey saying, kind of like you're okay. But in my mind, I was like, are we subtly planting the seeds of dissension against KO and his friend Cody Rhodes? Because Cody Rhodes inadvertently, unofficially, the executive and vice president of WWE, helped with all his political sway to bring Jey Uso to Raw to help him return to the company, turn to WWE. But by proxy, because of that, KO is now on SmackDown because of a Cody/Jey situation, separated from his friend Sami. Are we planting seeds to potentially slow heel turn? Maybe, eventually KO gets upset and turns on Cody?
Nah, I feel like that would be too surreptitious for KO to even bother trying to do. He has this current character going where he has a long memory. He remembers when you do dumb stuff, and he just won't take that. Like he just doesn't. He just doesn't deal with that sort of idiocy, really.
I love the fact that KO watches the show and remembers things. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorite parts.
he is just the biggest mark for the WWE product, honestly. And he's the only one that remembers. He's the only one that remembers these things. If I feel like there wouldn't be much to a Cody versus KO um fight, whilst Cody has the tag titles, and then for what reason do they fight then? I feel like if Cody had a singles title, there would be merit to that, and there would be point there. They could, yes, have a disagreement over Jay and try to figure it out in the ring. But my main issue with this is we just got rid of KO and Sami. So now they're back to being single stars. So they go away for an extended period of time after losing the titles, come back, have a match, and split them up with nary a bother because they're both single stars anyway. So we'll just go and do it.
Yeah.
Nah,
We're splitting up teams,
nah.
brother. We're splitting up the Usos. We're splitting up the KO show. So
Like I don't hate the idea of breaking this up. Give me reasons. You gave me a reason to bring them together, like this friendship. It's like you don't have to be friends. Like, well, how am I meant to tag with someone who's not my friend? It's like we're brothers, and I love you, and I kiss, and it's like, okay, cool. We had that rebuilding of Sami and KO, a storied telling of how they have fought on the Indies, they fought in NXT, they fought on the main roster. And now we're just like, oh, by the way, KO's here and Sami's not.
I mean, to that point, we had that makeup in March/April, and now it's already October. It's the middle of October. So I mean, that was quite a bit of a run. We had six and change months. So
Just don't feel like that this was the correct move.
all right, real quick, one final point on this. If it wasn't KO, who would you thought to bring over from Raw?
Good question. I honestly have no one specifically, but if we're doing the sort of breakup of individuals, I probably would have brought over one of Imperium. Just because I would have liked Vinci to come over, and he could have taken some of that action. I just we don't need a main star on SmackDown, is what I'm saying. We need more of that mid card ish kind of deal. And I get that, oh yeah, but we had a main event Jey Uso level person come to Raw. I can see behind the eyes, PT. Just you calm yourself there, buddy. We don't give them the leverage. All right. We have Nick Aldis get an inferior star for the trade. So then he can levy some more influence to get a second star. And that's when you bring in somebody else. So it's like it created absolutely nothing for me. Like this idea of a trade that was going to happen had some connotation of, okay, cool, we're going to do something spicy here. Who's it going to be? Oh, it's KO. KO is going to go into a feud with Roman Reigns yet again and lose for the fifth time. It is not going to be a fun match. It's going to be a boring match, and I don't see why he's there.
With the notion of just looking at the Raw roster, right? The Cody and Jay are in a prominent spot. You have the Sami and KO or different people. Can't bring Gunther over, and by proxy Imperium folks, type of thing. So yeah, I was hard pressed. I was thinking it was one of the Force Four that I mentioned earlier at the start, real quick. But yeah, I was trying to think of who else could it have been. So yeah, it's a tough spot. You want somebody of like if you're bringing over a main event Jey Uso, you want to get sort of a fair trade back. So I mean, KO is an absolutely fair person. Always kind of get over character work. Can be put into a main event feud. Can be put in a championship match. Can be put into a main event show of a weekly show, Raw or SmackDown. Can do some character work. So I think it's very versatile, and I think it was for lack of a fair trade in a sense.
I mean, it literally just kind of popped in my head. I really would have taken a Chad Gable over KO as well.
Yeah,
Like
so
splitting up the Alpha Academy. If we're going to split things up, you could just bring over the Alpha Academy because you would have had to have had, get him away from Gunther because if you're not going to pull the trigger on Gable winning the intercontinental title, give him a shot at the US title. Put him in a trajectory for that. Like that's the sort of ideas that I would be preferred to, because yes, whenever you're talking main event Jey Uso, well, you're going to have to bring over a Roman level threat, and KO is obviously that Roman level threat, but he's not going to win, and he's already lost like 4 times to Roman.
at least three for sure. At least three. Yeah.
At least three.
Yeah.
Like it's just ridiculous. I don't need to see KO lose to Roman again. Like anything else is preferable.
Yeah. Quite interesting for sure. So lots of moves being made on SmackDown. Lots of quite interesting announcements. Getting the GMs back. Some trades being completed for sure. Possible matches set up. Quite the interesting show itself. Let us know down in the comment section below on YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram. Let us know what your thoughts were on Mr. Nick Aldis coming in, being a GM. Mr. Adam Pearce being a GM as well. KO coming over. Possible matchup between Roman Reigns, maybe an LA Knight, maybe a Kevin Owens, perhaps. Let us know your thoughts down below. All right, we're going to wind down on here. Appreciate everybody sticking around and listening and watching at this point. Joker, quite the interesting week. Lots of stars coming out of the woodwork, trying to show up and show out, if you will. Some announcements, lots of moves. What were your thoughts just overall on the week itself?
Ups and downs. It had a really good sort of upside for both companies. But there was still questionable moves that were made by both companies as well that have me sort of scratching my head more so than normal. And it's just, yeah, I'm gonna wait and see. Um, there is potential. Like I said, Orange Cassidy having this sort of fanatic build up for the title has me intrigued. Hikaru Shida getting that third title reign is very interesting, if not confusing. Um, And yeah, the ever wonderful LA Knight just having that just god tier ascension. Like I love it. I'm here for his downfall, his upwards trajectory, his everything, because he just has the crowd eating out of his hand at this point. And yeah, definitely I want to just return back to the fact that I really don't think we should be giving singles stars universal or unified tag titles, whatever the heck they're called these days. I really just don't think we should be doing it.
I mean, I'm never opposed to if I can do a little bit of a throwback, a little TNA Samoa Joe, literally just holding the world, the X Division, and the tag team titles all by himself. Just get the old that picture of Triple H with every single fat type of thing.
Yeah, that's not something I think we need in the modern day, especially whenever a champion, like I feel got really sick of two belts Roman. Like I was just I hated, you know, Dose Belts Becky as well, or whatever she called herself. Becky Two Belts, that's the one. It was Dose Belts Bailey or something. 'Cause she I just hate champions having more than one belt. Just stop it. Just blooming stop it. Unless they're two completely separate titles, then just you stop it.
All right. Take a notion from a good brother, Mr. Simon Miller. Would you give this week an up, a down, a golden up, or a brown down?
I'll take my lead from positive Pete that is Simon Miller. I'll give this an up.
All right. I feel like I saw that in a give this an up sign in the crowd, possibly an AEW show either this week or last week, can't remember, but it is what it is. Just an eventful week. Hope you enjoyed some wrestling. Hopefully there was something that you enjoyed out of this week. A lot of things to go over. So appreciate everybody listening and watching this far. Appreciate you. Thank you for the over 1,000 downloads. Appreciate all the views and the likes and everything like that. Helps us grow. Thank you so much. We're gonna wind down out of here. So for TF Joker,
69. Nice.
nice. And for me, Pretty Tony, we thank you for your time, letting us be a part of your day. Remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and we will catch you next time. Peace.